First of all, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Schulte. I'm a head of consulting based here in Basel, Switzerland. And I'm going to take the opportunity to spend those 20 minutes with you together to talk about our e-commerce initiative and how it's going to help you. So with that said, let's go. First of all, before I show what we have done for you, and you're going to like it, let's talk about what changed in e-commerce and retail. As you probably know, there's this one mega trend, that is headless. So nowadays, the vast majority of new projects are started on headless, and also old implementation are more and more changed towards headless. Let's talk a little about why suddenly this fundamental architecture changed so quickly towards headless. Well, one of the main reasons is that the experiences that are served nowadays are becoming more and more complex technically. And there are no systems out there that are able to really do it all. Though in your typical setup, you have many, many systems. So it's really about composability nowadays. And if you had the head just centralized in one system, that really posed a problem because it was really limiting the different teams to work on the experience by itself. And this is why headless helped a lot to somehow decouple teams and make it more efficient to work and to create those top-notch experiences. However, as always, if you change your technology, sometimes new problems arise. And one of those problems with headless is that just building the rendering head, the web application in the end, that can be kind of time consuming and costly in the beginning. Also, troubleshooting and extending those experiences can be a little bit more challenging than you maybe think from the first step on. And also these integrations on front-end level are complex and sometimes challenging, also if it comes to automated testability. But to solve this, we have a few very awesome initiatives, and therefore, let me show you what we have. First of all, this is where we're going to spend most of the time. It's our universal experience framework. We're going to hear about that a lot, and also we're going to see a live demo. The next thing, that's Mobify from Salesforce. For those that don't know the name Mobify yet. So also Salesforce realized that if it comes to e-commerce, if you really want to do content-driven e-commerce with a lot of storytelling, then just this monolithic e-commerce approach is not working at all. And therefore also Salesforce is investing heavily in headless, and those acquired Mobify, which is an awesome company that allows you to run your managed front end in the cloud. The next thing that we're going to talk about is View Storefront. It's also an extremely well-built, promising, ready-made web storefront end. And last but not least, if you are running with SAP, then there is SAP Spartacus, which is also a ready-made storefront. So those are the 4 topics that we're going to talk about in the upcoming minutes. So let's kick off with our universal experience framework. What is that? Well, before I explain what it is, I had the pleasure to already demo our UAF to various clients and partners. And just to give you an idea, some sites on it. So the general consensus, it's really, yep, it's absolutely built on the latest and greatest tools and workflows, and you're definitely going to love and adopt it. And I could not agree more. It's definitely going to change how you think and how you create your projects, and it will accelerate your projects and enable you to use the tools and the technologies that you really need. So let's have a closer look. What is it? Well, it's really just one framework to create experiences on any headless framework. And it's a reason why it's in red, because on any headless framework, that means you can create your components once, and then you can just use them in React, in Angular, or in Vue. So you can just really use the front-end technologies that suits your actual team best. So what's in the package of the Universal Experience Framework? First of all, we're going to bring a nice catalog. So this catalog is going to bring in all the components that you typically need in a project. However, those components are obviously not like hardwired and you have to use them as they are. They're all totally tailored for extensibility and for custom UX flavors. Then, that's a secret sauce in there, we have this experience composing engine. Basically, that is this machinery that is going to take your existing web components that are template, not front-end agnostic, and is going to translate those into the framework of your choice. If we have a look on the Universal Experience Catalog, then it's really this common set of components that you're going to see in every project. Though it means we are going to bring you components for navigation, for banner, for shopping carts, products, carousels, sliders, and so on, you name it. If you look for such a typical workflow, if you utilize a UEF, then typically you start in the first step of your project with something like Figma. They're going to sketch out the layout of your components so they can match your information architecture in the end. Then those components, they are all going to be stored in the design system in Storybook, though it's part of the UEF. Then, last but not least, those components are directly, without any further intervention, translated to React, to Vue, to Next, to Angular. Okay, let's have a closer look on the technology behind it. So first of all, from a technical standpoint, you're going to start to develop straight web components. So web components just use web standard web components. With very little code, you can just register those in your Storybook. And then in between, we have our stencil compiler. The stencil compiler is going to tap into our SDKs for Vue, Angular, and React. And then it's automatically compiling those components into your Vue, React, and Angular frameworks. The good thing is from that point on, you can really just via code, for example, call an MGNL button, MGNL carousel, you name it. So you're really strictly typed. That makes really the developer experience a lot more pleasant versus just having everything somehow stitched together. How is the thing going to look like? So here we have it on a slide, but I guess having on a slide is one thing. Really, let's have a look on a live system, how that really looks like. So I'm going to head over to my running Storybook instance that is here currently on my system locally running. So what is it? First of all, it's really a nice, everything is nicely documented. That means that you're going to have here all the different components from your design system available for the project. Plus all those components are self-documented. So for example, if we look here at that button, then we have here all the different versions of a button, how they could look like. Obviously, we can introduce all kind of parameters for those different elements that you have in your design system. For example, here, just change the title to Hello Retail. You have components like this Magnolia cards, and so on, just really a big amount of ready-made components. However, what we see here, it's not like, this is what you have to use. All those components come already with a lot of classes that can be directly applied, and it's also extremely simple to spin up your own components and add them to the catalog. Just having components in isolation is one thing, but obviously you also want to have some kind of preview. Therefore, it's also very easy just to stitch the different components that you have your arsenal to get this first preview, how that looks like. So if we're going to look on how the coding actually looks with it, then I'm just going to head over to my Visual Studio here. And yeah, this is what it is. It's really your standard Storybook that is really fleshed out with all the different components that you need. So let's have a look on, for example, this very simple Magnolia button component here. So in this section, in the render section, you're just going to write down your web component. And then you're probably wondering, okay, if I just have here a web component, how can I have a web component that is somehow magically translated to, let's say, React? And how is it possible that this React component automatically can pull in content from Magnolia via REST? Well, let me show you. All you have to do to bring in dynamic data via REST from Magnolia. It's really just as simple as adding a prop here, like for example, this button title. And then you see the dynamic part. I just say here, this button title, and this is all it really takes. This code here can be with that. automatically can be automatically translated to the target system that you really need. And the cool thing is every CSS change that you do here, obviously is immediately going to be reflected in the storybook. And as you also can see, is every component is just coming with matching tests and also matching stories. So if you want to use certain sliders in your storybook, you just have to use here the button stories, and then you can just extend it. And as you can see here, that's really all your standard code that is used in the project. So for your implementation, if you need your own component, it's really as simple as running an npx stencil at component. You just give it a name, and then you get already a nice skeleton for your class or for your component. You can just match it accordingly, and that's it. While you're doing this, automatically the compiler in the background is going to translate it to Angular, React, and to Vue or Next. So it's a real fluent approach. So let's say I want to change here this component. Let's change this to H2, and I want to add some hello retail. I'm just going to save it. You can just see in the background automatically the component is built. Boom, that's it. So if I just jump back here and go to my button hello retail, then the change is immediately effective, and I also see this here already in my landing page. So it's a real quick way to iterate all the components in a real isolated atomic way. Everything is testable and automatically brought to the to the front end without having those nasty steps in between that you have to somehow take your prototype and cut out those components and translate them, for example, into free marker. And as I said, once you really start to adopt and embrace this workflow, the runtime of your project should really shrink a lot. And it's also going to help you a lot in consistency if it comes to delivering your experiences, because you have really all the different UX elements that you have for your digital kiosk systems, for your website, for your app under one go. You have really the full control of how those elements look like, and they're immediately actionable for the delivering front-end framework. All right. So much for the standard catalog of components that we bring in, and so much about automatically translating them to the target frameworks. All right. So this is how our UEF works. Let's also talk about how your typical e-commerce architecture looks like, because this is one of the questions that we get quite often in the last few months. Obviously, there are many different architectures out there, but this example architecture is something that you see really often. So what you have is the Magnolia authoring system. This is a system where you can really, with this, what you see is what you get approach, where you can just really take all those components that we have seen, and you can just really visually just place them on the page and basically manage the content. Once you publish your content, then this is transmitted to the Magnolia public instances. For safety reasons, you always have typically like 2 Magnolia instances or more for high load scenarios. Then, obviously, we have a load balancer. This load balancer is going to channel all those REST requests to the rendering heads. In this case, it would be a scenario where you host your own Angular application, for example. And then also for scaling, you can just spin up as much pods as you like. And they're just going to fetch the REST data without knowing anything from the CMS in the end. If it comes for the e-commerce aspects, as I said, nowadays, it's really a lot about composability. Then your e-commerce system like BigCommerce, Hybrid, Commerce Tools, Salesforce, you name it. All those systems are just going to deliver the content via REST, and then those components that we have seen, they're also just going to ingest the data from those systems to actually render nice experiences. And then again, yet another load balancer, maybe a CDN if you're really about high speed around the world. Then you can just really deliver server-side rendered content really, really fast. All right, let's talk about ready-made storefronts. So why do I need a ready-made storefront if I have already something like the UAF? Well, obviously the UAF itself, it's heavily tailored around content and around the different elements. However, There's obviously also in the front end itself, even though it's just consuming REST data, there must be some kind of logic applied. And this is where really ready-made storefronts come in. So they really solve the last 20% for you from the get-go. That's also extremely helpful and valuable if you want to go to market extremely fast. So what is it? As already mentioned from the beginning, there is Mobify as this new star in the e-commerce segment for Salesforce. So we are going to finish our incubator phase for Mobify by the end of this week on Friday. So all the documentation, code, and so on is already passed forward to Salesforce, though if you start your next, or if you think about your next Salesforce project, you should absolutely have Mobify on the radar, and we have this ready-made connector for Mobify. The good thing is, because also Mobify, like Vue Storefront, like this Spartacus, they are all building on the same technology and the same pattern. That means you can use the ready-made components, for example, from Mobify, from Vue, or from Spartacus, but you can follow the same workflow, and you can, and again, just take those components, write them as a standard web component, and bring them straight to Vue or to Mobify or to all the other storefronts that are relevant. So yeah, Mobify is going to be fully supported, ready to go. The next thing that we got a lot of momentum if it comes to ready-made storefronts, that is a Vue storefront. So Vue storefront is built on Vue, or to be precise, on Nuxt. And also here, we're going to have a full integration. That means you can really shape the full experience within Magnolia. And the final delivery can be done with the Vue storefront. And last but not least, if you run with SAP and you want to really focus on content-driven e-commerce, and it's important that you can shape out new experiences and contents fast without smart edit, then there is Spartacus. So Spartacus is actually written in Angular.js, and again, it's just a standard Angular universal application that brings a lot of components that can be used in Magnolia from the get-go, and you can follow those centralized approaches with the UEF. I mean, it's been a lot in those short 20 minutes, but if you have 3 things to remember, what all those things bring you, I guess the thing that really stick out, it's really a heftily reduced time to market. So you don't have to spend like $500,000 on your front end. You can have this for much cheaper, much faster, because of this reuse and this accelerated way of applying best practices. Therefore, also the risk and the cost of your projects are much, much lower versus if you really develop your implementation freestyle. And last but not least, it's really from this workflow perspective, it's much easier to create a seamless brand experience through the entire buyer journey, and especially on all the different channels that you're going to utilize for any country. Okay, that was a lot. I would at this point like to stop and open it up and see if there are any questions from what we have seen so far. Okay, wait a second, let me share my screen so I can see the questions, and here it goes. Can you show again how the CMS data is used in the Spark code? Absolutely. So let me share my screen again. And here we go. So how is the CMS able to actually get data from the CMS? How is it possible? Just this is all it needs to get data from the CMS? Huh? How come? Well, it's really as simple as this. You are going to create your own props here. So for example, here it's this very simple string, button title string. And that already is going to make this component dynamic. So once this component is injected into your React application, then automatically there's going to be a lookup in the incoming JSON data, and the component is trying to fetch to get this prop within the payload for button title. Once there's a hit, then automatically this content is going to be applied dynamically to this component. So all this wiring that is going to be based on convention. So it's really because that thing is called button title, automatically there's going to be a lookup for the prop button title. So obviously to create this connection between this component here and and Magnolia, there must be this matching dialog on Magnolia side in the dialog when you just create those components. And therefore, obviously, for this component here, for example, you have to create this dialog that is going to have string button title. This is all it really takes to create already the data structure. Once you're going to query then this data via REST, automatically there's going to be this wiring. That's really the part that our framework brings automatically with it. All right. And by the way, for the people that don't know yet how really editing looks like with Magnolia, because this is typically one of those shortcomings if it comes to headless. If I just go here to a random headless demo, here we go. So if I go here to the Pages app, we're going to have a lot of different sites here. If I open this up, then this here is already pure headless. So Magnolia is not rendering anything at all. Everything is just delivered via REST endpoints, and there's a React application running in the background, and the React application is going to deliver everything. And in fact, the full experience here is not even coming from the React application by itself. There's even a CDN in between. So there's Netlify, and everything is delivered via Netlify. And still, as an editor, I have the full flexibility to change here my content. Save changes, and we get this nice preview here. So those components, they can be all managed in this UAF framework with ready-made components. We have seen how easy it is to change the HTML. If you want to adapt it somehow, just go for it. Every single component has its own isolated CSS classes. You can work on them. If you want to work on the general CSS, our UAF is just built on Bootstrap, then you can just use the standard Bootstrap variables to just adopt it. Just in a nutshell, what we see here, that's an important point. That here is already true headless. Magnolia is not rendering anything. That is coming from an external solution that was developed extremely quickly. And if it comes to the editorial experience, you just have all the dialogues that you love and now save changes. And yet you have really this feeling like you are just using a standard approach of CMS, but here you really have all the flexibility from a CMS system with a headless approach, with also multiple sources like external DAM systems and external e-commerce systems. All right.
Jan, thank you so much for spending the time and whizzing through all of this. It's been great. And thank you very much for everyone who has joined today. If you've got any questions directly, then send them through. Obviously, you've got various email addresses that you can help with, but you can always just email us across the website as well for any questions. Thank you very much and have a great afternoon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for your time. Bye-bye.